Mr. President, this past week, we have seen the spread of COVID-19 has really become a crisis, not just for our nation, but a crisis for every American. Today, millions of Americans are asking themselves, how will they endure this crisis? How long will the crisis last? How will it affect their families, their communities, their nation as a whole? We have many people that are now trying to do the dollars and cents of this crisis, literally sitting down to try to calculate how many weeks they can stretch the last 2 weeks of pay. We see people who have been furloughed, had their hours reduced, been laid off. We have seen small businesses, from the mom and pop pizza joint to small interior design shops to barber shops, are all trying to determine how they can keep themselves afloat when their doors are closed, how they can deal with their fixed costs. I've been on the phone with so many employers in my own state who have spoken to me about the challenges they have trying to continue to cover the health insurance of their employees, even with the fact that no revenue is being brought in by their businesses. Over and over again, restaurants, bars, coffee shops, our sports arenas, hotels, all of them have been emptied, and millions of workers have been let go and had their hours slashed. On top of that, schools across this country, from colleges to kindergartens, have been closed, and millions of families are now scrambling to try to find childcare. College students are displaced, moving back in with families. This is, on so many levels, a true crisis like none of us have ever faced before in our nation. And the emotions are running the gamut. People are angry, people are afraid, people are fearful for their own physical safety as well as their economic well-being. And this is something that is challenging because we do not know how long it will last. The one thing we do know is that this crisis is a shared one, but many people face their own privately painful challenges. I want to give you one example. There is a single mother in my state, a mother of two, who works at a nursing home and is also raising her granddaughter. At work, she cares for elderly patients, and because family members can no longer visit, she's rising to the challenge of not just being a professional there, but she also feels that she is serving as a surrogate family member. And now for weeks, the basic personal protective equipment she needs to keep herself safe is in short supply, is literally dwindling down. She also makes, for all of this incredible work, this incredible dedication, literally on the front lines, she makes $14 an hour. And with schools now closing, her teenage children will be responsible for caring for her granddaughter while she works because she can't afford childcare. She doesn't know what she would do if she got sick and actually had to miss work. She's living every day afraid of getting the coronavirus. There are millions of families in this similar situation, and millions of Americans who are getting up every day knowing that they're going to work is essential for the well-being of others, but yet they still don't know how they'll take care of their families. The most recent bipartisan relief package that came out of Congress, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, is a very important step in helping those families in combating the spread of the virus and its effects. It will help to increase testing, ensure the availability of emergency paid family and sick leave for many workers, increase food assistance, and make emergency unemployment insurance available for more workers that really, really need it. Now, as we turn to the next package of policies and funding to help Americans that are suffering now, we know that this is a moment that demands bold, decisive action and doesn't leave anybody behind. We know we are a nation born out of crisis. We know that our founding ideals have to understand that this government was formed to protect people, to defend people. We, in our Declaration of Independence, talk about mutually pledging to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. The spirit of this nation is about being there for each other, coming together to be stronger despite the crisis, despite the challenge. And I am so grateful at this time we're seeing bipartisan work on both sides of the aisle, as we are all seeing from our personal lives to our states as a whole, we're all seeing the urgency. I'm worried now that the first proposal that we've seen, though, falls short of addressing the needs of our healthcare workers and first responders, those Americans that are really putting themselves out there. I'm confident, though, that we are going to come together in the coming hours to try to create a package that rises above or rises to meet the moment we're in. Right now, our nation's first responders, our firefighters, our healthcare professionals are being asked to respond to situations where they don't have the personal protective equipment they need to stay safe. In my own city, I talked to the head of public safety who talked to me about the courage of these folks who, no matter what, are going to go to work, even without that protective gear. But dear God, shouldn't we be doing everything we can? Because if they get sick, if they can't show up, we see a cascading crisis. It would be disgraceful. It would be dangerous. So it's not an exaggeration to say that if we don't move quickly to get personal protective equipment to our frontline responders, we are going to be ill-equipped, not just to fight COVID-19, but we could see the widespread interruptions in the delivery of all life-saving emergencies in America. Also, this bill that we have seen now that we must make better, it must address not just this issue, but also do more for healthcare workers and first responders to get them the equipment they need. There's a lot of things that I feel strongly about that I know will be in these negotiations. We should all be able to agree on supporting our veterans in VA facilities as they prepare to fight this virus. There's gaping holes in this bill. We should all agree on funding for our transit systems like Amtrak that are going to make sure that keep our country connected and that those systems don't fail and fall, especially when we need them switched on and running vibrantly when our economy gets going. God, we should all agree that this is a time to deal with some of the massive shortfalls that we have now more than ever. While places like South Korea have universal broadband penetration, we should all agree that broadband access and devices for our students are critical if we're going to continue to educate our children for the months ahead. We should all agree on providing tests for our troops that are still serving in high-risk areas like Afghanistan. We need to make sure these bills address for these holes. We should all agree on strengthening our community colleges and our minority-serving institutions so they too can continue to educate their students digitally. These are holes that must be filled. We should all agree that we need to be providing funding and flexibility for our schools and food banks to continue to serve meals to children in our country so that crisis or not crisis, the next generation can grow healthy and strong. We should all agree that the utilities in our nation should not be shut off during this crisis. We need to address that in this bill. And that families, regardless of income, who are already now struggling to make ends meet, don't see themselves without light, power, gas. These holes in this bill should be addressed. We should all agree that everyone must have coverage for testing and access to healthcare services that keep them and their families safe. And that includes the people who are in our country, whether they're documented or not, because our health is directly interrelated with their health. And to make sure the only people that can get treatment are citizens of the United States, ignoring the millions of people that are not, means that the citizens of the United States are at risk. We should also think about those folks that we don't think about enough, like those that are incarcerated, as well as the correction officers and workers who deal with those that are incarcerated. We're not doing enough to address that pending crisis in our country. There are holes in this bill. I want to take one moment, though, to address an aspect of this bill which there seems to be general consensus about, but that can be made so much stronger, and that's the issue of cash payments. Economic relief packages coming from this body should be about offering everyone relief, including those through no fault of their own that now find themselves on that financial brink. It's why we must strengthen unemployment compensation that includes both increasing benefits across the board and expanding eligibility to include more workers like gig economy workers and other independent workers. And that's why I specifically want to address this cash payment part, because that's not enough. The idea of cash payments, I'm so grateful to see a lot of my colleagues be supportive of that idea. Earlier this week, Senator Bennett Brown and I, along with several of our colleagues, proposed sending cash payments directly to American families, starting with $2,000 sent immediately to every American, low and middle income, with additional payments if our economy remains in distress. Under our plan, in the worst case scenario, if our economy remains in distress, a family of four over an entire year with 3 tranches of payments would be eligible for $18,000. Critically, our plan would not require an income threshold to receive payments, which means that everyone under a certain income level would qualify. The current proposal would exclude exactly the people and households who actually need it most. By creating an income requirement and phase-in, this plan currently proposed would be skipping over the most vulnerable people. That means a mom who quit her job to spend the last year caring for a sick child, or a husband or a parent with Alzheimer's whose full-time job has been caring for that spouse or loved one, would receive nothing under this plan. It also means that a college student forced to leave school, having sources of support at college no longer now, trying to enter the job market but not able to, would receive nothing under this plan. Some tipped workers, seasonal workers, people coming out of the criminal justice system, paid their debt to society, would receive nothing under this plan. This is a moment that we have to understand that we should be thinking boldly, acting in a bipartisan way at a scale we've never seen before, because we've never seen a crisis like this before. This is not a time to do something that's anemic, that's inadequate, that leaves some of the most vulnerable people out in the cold, when we know those people, there are family members, there are neighbors who wouldn't qualify for the plan that it is right now. I know those family members because there's people that live in my community. Someone who worked their entire life just last year has a mother that's dying, quit their job to try to support them. These are folks we know. They might even be in our own family. We shouldn't exclude them at this time. And by the way, including them helps to further the impact of this stimulative effects of this plan. It literally puts more money into our economy in the hands of people that will spend it, and that will have a multiplier effect. We need to be injecting cash directly into our economy and giving people agency again in their lives at a time that so many people feel helpless amidst this health and economic crisis. And God, we need to be doing it quickly, getting payments to people as soon as possible. For seniors, these payments should simply be added to their next Social Security check. And I remind you that about 7 million of our seniors live at or below the poverty line because their Social Security checks don't go far enough. For our veterans, they should receive theirs at the same time as they get their VA benefits. We can do that quickly. And for everyone else, the IRS should send checks or deposit funds directly into their bank account. This is the kind of action we need to ensure that once we get through this public health crisis, we have the tools in place we need to reactivate the world's greatest economy and enable it to recover. And the great thing about designing something this way is we can put in place now while we're all assembled here as a body. I said this to my caucus, and I didn't mean to be in any way draconian, but there's 100 of us. It's likely some of us could be sick. While we're all assembled here, let's put things in place so they're triggered. If the economy is still down, it triggers the next set of actions. Instead of having to come back here and negotiate more now, put things in place with automatic triggers that if the economy 3 months is from there, it triggers more action, like the next tranche of payments. If the economy at the end of the year is still where it is, let's trigger another automatic payment. That's not just common sense, it's proactive. It means that people can begin to rely on those resources, do the kind of planning by having predictable sources of income and not having the challenges that I'm starting to find now just for a week or two, which are the emotional challenges now, the stress of families. I talked to medical professionals this week that worry about this home isolation, people stressed over bills, people worried about their next paycheck. This is an emotional strain to our country and will have physical manifestations. I want to say that I love my nation for so many reasons. But one of the reasons is because it's often been my life experience that during the toughest times, I've had to witness the best of us. I was a college student in 1989 when a horrible earthquake hit the Bay Area. We in Stanford were closer to the epicenter than even San Francisco was. I remember the fears as people were knocked out of their homes, but the other thing I saw was America. I saw the best of who we are. People pulling together, sheltering friends, sharing food. It was one of these experiences as a young person coming of age that I'll never forget. I'm not happy an earthquake happened, but God, it so inspired me to see the best of who we are. Later, I'm a young man, city councilman in Newark, about 10 miles from the World Trade Center, and 9/11 happens. Horrible, horrible things. I lost my childhood best friend in those buildings. But God, in that crisis, what do we do in this country? God, I remember the lines, people lining up in front of hospitals to donate blood, how people pulled together, stood for each other, sacrificed for each other. There was something so powerful, so patriotic. People remembering that patriotism is not a flag pin. Patriotism is love of country, and you cannot love your country unless you love your fellow countrymen and women. And love is not sentimentality, it's sacrifice, it's service, it's being there for each other. God, when Hurricane Sandy hit New Jersey, and thousands of people lost their homes, power shut off in our communities for days or over a week. Again, I saw the best of who we are in a nation, in a crisis, in a challenge. We don't pull apart, we pull together. We stand up for each other, we serve each other. It may put us back individually, but the generosity I saw, people reaching in their bank accounts, buying blankets, buying food, it was inspiring. Putting people up in hotels who were out of their homes. It hearkened me back to the stories I heard from my parents and my grandparents about what it was like in the Great Depression in poor communities in the South and how much people were there for each other. It reminded me of World War II. My grandmother, literally till the day she died, African-American woman bragging about her victory gardens, how eagerly, how it gave her pride that she was rationing, how this poor woman who worked as a domestic at times was buying war bonds. Everybody was pitching in. That's who we are. That's America. And now the wealthiest nation on the planet Earth is facing one of its biggest trials. I pray one of the biggest trials of my lifetime, if not the biggest trial. The most wealthiest country on the planet is showing what we are called to be. I've always felt that the Bible, that the prophet Elijah, that we are the light unto other nations, about how you pull together, stand together, fight through a storm, fight through a crisis. We are showing what we do for each other. It's not just the men and women sitting in these seats, it's all of us. In the greatest crisis of our lifetime, what are you doing for other people? And I pray our legislation keeps that spirit in mind. When the most common faith talks about what are you doing for the widower, what are you doing for the orphan, what are you doing for those in prison, I hope we keep that in mind. It's not a time for half steps or half measures. It's time for the bold spirit of America, where we stand up for each other. We don't pull apart, we come together. We don't tear down, we rise up. That's where we are right now in American history. In this great global pandemic, we are a light unto each other as well as to the world. And the Senate right now, while there still are 100 of us here doing the work, let's do it nobly and boldly, generously of spirit. Let's extend civic grace, because this crisis is not bigger than who we are. We will endure. We shall overcome. May God bless America. May God bless each and every one of us. Thank you, Mr. President.